All right, hi everyone. Josh here from Attitudes Team Kaizen Ingenium. We're going to do a quick introductory video for you to get you up to speed on playing and creating in LittleBigPlanet. First of all, I'm going to be referencing buttons on the DualShock 4. That's the controller here that you'll be using. This stick right here, the left analog stick, is what you use to move Sackboy or Sackgirl back and forth. These buttons are the action buttons, triangle, cross, or X, circle, and square, and I'll be referencing those time to time too. And these buttons right here, the up, down, left, and right buttons, are called the D-pad. And for the most part, you can do almost everything in LittleBigPlanet just with these buttons. The only additional one to worry about is this one up here called R1. R1 will let Sackboy or Sackgirl grab soft surfaces so they can grab and drag and pull stuff or swing from them like swinging from monkey bars. And to get started, you kick off by being in this room. This is called your pod. And while you're in your pod, you can do some basic decorating. So for instance, you can hit the square button, and that brings out Sackboy or Sackgirl's Poppet, which is their imagination. And you can go onto Customize Character and hit X. And you can either pick from a bunch of prefab character designs, or you can actually go through and choose individual skin types for them, individual eye types, different kinds of shirts, pants, shoes, and smile types. You can pick everything that you would want for them and customize them and kind of design what you think a engineer Sackboy or Sackgirl would look like. And keep in mind that the first thought that pops into your head of what an engineer looks like might not necessarily be the entire definition of what an engineer looks like. So feel free to play with it. While you're moving around, you can also notice that you can jump with X, and that is a good way to get moving around. You can, even if you want to goof off a little bit, you can build up momentum running side by side and jumping into the wall, and you can eventually get the entire pod to swing, because basically the pod is suspended by string outside of camera view. But when you're ready, go stand in front of that little 3D recreation of the DualShock 4 and hit square, and that's meaning we're using the pod computer. And as long as you're using the same version of LittleBigPlanet 3 the menu should look a lot like this. And one thing you'll eventually want to do is you can eventually go to play and go to Poppet Puzzles. But that's when you have a lot more time available to you. Like, do that on your own time. But Poppet Puzzles are a story mode that teaches you how to use all the create tools. But, so yeah, they're under play. But so we're going to hit circle to back up, because for today, since we're going to do something quick, we'll just do a quick demo with you. Just click on Create with X, and click My Moon. And if your moon looks different from this, that's okay. I just artistically jazzed up my moon, so don't worry if yours looks different. Pick an empty level area. That would be any of these areas that have a dotted outline like that, and hit X to enter it. Now we are in create mode. Every level you ever play in LittleBigPlanet starts off like this, where it's this big long expanse and nothing in it yet. Some things to notice while you're in create mode is up on the D-pad, the up directional key changes us between play mode and pause mode. And what that's important to know, because when the world is paused, physics like gravity don't have effect. So for instance, this start gate that I came out of, if I pick it up in the air and let go of it, it'll stay there until I hit play mode, and then gravity takes back control. So a lot of times when you're building something like a machine, it actually will help you if you turn pause mode on like that, build it in the air first, and then turn on play mode and let it drop to the ground to see what you did right or did wrong. But anyways, you'll also see that Sackboy is not actually in the scene right now. He's flying around it. That's because I'm in fly mode, which is basically where Sackboy's acting like a computer cursor and you're just flying. To swap between fly mode and non-fly mode, hit the down key. And then you'll be in the environment and able to run around and test stuff. And also, when you bring up Poppet in create mode, you'll notice it's a little bit bigger. It has a few more options, so that compared to what we could do while we were in our pod. One of them is the goodies bag. Goodies bag, long story short, is your 3D art bag. You can pick in all sorts of materials, and don't worry if you don't have all the materials that I have here, that's okay. But you can different kinds of cardboard, different kinds of glass, different kinds of metal. And then once you pick a kind, it asks you what shape you want to use as your brush. And so in this case, let's just use a circle. And then you can either stamp it in place just by hitting X. So there we stamped a little metal circle. And you can move around with the left stick. And the right analog stick makes it bigger, smaller, or lets you rotate it. But let's say that you don't just want a circle, you want like a line of metal. So you can hold down X and hold the left stick sideways, and you can smear into existence pieces of material. And again, they are not affected by gravity right now because I'm in pause mode, but when I unpause, gravity takes effect again. The other bag here is called the tools bag. And the tools bag is basically your computer science bag. It has all sorts of programming and stuff in it. Like all these pictures you see here are representations of computer art. I mean, not computer art, but representations of computer code. And what we call if and then statements. So for instance, let me go to a different page of there because they have a page here that has some lights in it. And I'll show you how an if and then statement works. So I'm going to grab a light bulb. And actually I'll grab a different one. Let's grab a glowy star. I'm going to tweak this star first to make it really bright so that you can tell when it's on and when it's off. I'm going to put the star here. And then I'm going to go back to our goodies bag, or back to our tools bag. And I'm going to grab a button. Because a button is one of the simplest ways to make an if and then statement in LittleBigPlanet. So the button, you'll notice, has this little bit of green light glowing out of the bit of it. That means I can grab a wire out of it. I just, first of all, in my Poppet menu, I hover over the Poppet cursor, which is this little tadpole-looking dude. You grab him with X, and that you can move that around. Hover over the end of that green light, and you'll see that green light get a little bit bigger. Once it's bigger, I can hit X, and I have my wire. Now I can wire it to whatever I want. In this case, I will wire it to the blue star. Notice it turned off. So now we have our if and then statement. If Sackboy steps on the button, then the light turns on. And that's basically all computer code that you experience in video games ultimately comes down to if and then statements like that. Like if I tilt the stick left and right, Sackboy runs left and right. If I hit X, then Sackboy jumps. And that is the basis of all computer code, is if and then statements. So we will delete the star for right now, but we're going to keep the button because it's kind of important to what we're going to do next. Let's take this guy that we made earlier. First of all, when you're dealing with basic materials, like materials that you smeared or stamped into the environment, like cardboard, glass, wood, you can use these triggers up here, the L1 and R1 ones, to move them between layers. Like you can see that there's a shadow underneath on the ground, that green shadow. That is showing me that I'm in one layer right now, and I can move between any of the layers available. There is 16 thick layers, which is the layers that Sackboy can walk around in and stand in, and 17 thin layers, which are artistic layers just used to do pretty effects. And don't worry if you're getting kind of overwhelmed with it right now. It takes a while to get used to creating LittleBigPlanet, but once you get comfortable with it, it'll click. Don't worry. And we all had that point where we got stressed initially. But anyways, I'm going to make sure that I'm a few layers back because we're going to turn this piece of metal into a car. And how we're going to do that is we are going to take our round piece that we stamped, make sure that it's in one layer ahead, and we're going to make it a little bit bigger so it can be our wheel. And then what we're going to do is go to our tools bag, and I believe it's on the third page at the top, and we're going to grab a motor bolt. And a motor bolt allows it to spin as long as it's actually bolted to something. So we're going to grab our motor bolt, and the nice thing about LittleBigPlanet is if I want this motor bolt to be directly in the center of this wheel, I just kind of slowly go towards the middle, and you'll see it snap right there. It snapped to the middle. Then I hit X. Now I can tweak this motor bolt by keep putting my Poppet cursor over it and hitting square, and that brings up its tweak menu. And so we see that it's spinning at 30 right now, and you can see that white outline of it spinning. That's kind of slow. So why don't we up it a little bit? Let's go to 90. And then, of course, you can tweak it however much you want and play with it as much as you want later. And the rest of it should be fine. And so another trick I want to teach you really quick is when you grab something with X to move it around, if you click the left stick in, you'll hear that sound, and that gives you a ghost of another one. So that's how you can stamp additional ones into the environment. And then if you want to delete something, just grab it with X and hit triangle. But anyways, so now that we have the bolt on there, it needs to be bolted to something so that it can spin. So we're going to grab it, we're going to line it up in front of our little piece of metal there and hit X. That is now bolted to the line of metal. And now we're going to bolt this one to there too. And now we have 2 wheels mounted to it. And we'll just delete that extra one. And see that it's moving, but we, it's moving on its own, really. And I think we can do better than that. We can make it so that it only moves when we want it to move. So let's take our button here, and we'll just make our button kind of a little bit bigger. And if you notice, I have my button right in front of the metal right there. I'm going to grab it and then hold down the X button to glue it to that piece behind it. And when you hear that, you know that 2 objects are glued together. And then we're going to take that green light and wire it into the bolts. On, off. On, off. And now it will only move if we step on the button. And that's the very early basics of making a car in LittleBigPlanet. And you can take this information and remix it, and especially as you go through the Pop-It puzzles and learn more advanced techniques on how to make objects, you can make progressively more complex vehicles. And, there's basically no limit to what you can do. Like, for instance, I'll show you one thing I've done here really quick. That's using the exact same methodologies. It's just, taking that bit of knowledge that you learn along the way and constantly making a slightly more complex project. I made a ride here called Bayern Curve. It's a kind of like a bobsledding ride. And if you notice, it has this thing on here called a microchip. Like, microchips are part of advanced programming that you learn in LittleBigPlanet. And if I want to hide the microchip for a little bit, I just click this stick in. And when you click the left stick in, you get that little bit of eyeball in the upper right-hand corner that tells you that you're in preview mode. It shows you what your level will look like to players who are playing your game, like when they're playing it online. And so, using that same basic ideas that we used to build that, just making it more complex, we built an entire thrill ride. And in this case, this version of my ride also has a G-force meter on it, so that, and that was a bit of additional programming I did too, where, I just wanted to find out how many G's that the ride puts on people, which, for those of you who don't know, a G-force is basically a multiplier of your weight. So, for instance, right there, it's saying that riders are experiencing 2 G's positive, which means at the point of the ride where you're feeling really heavy and pulled down in your seat, you're feeling twice your body weight being put on your body. And when you feel butterflies on the ride and you get like that light, airy feeling, that's called negative G's. And it's feeling negative 4 G's, which means basically 4 times your body weight's worth of force is launching you out of that seat. But all this started from the same basic principle of building this car, and you just constantly make it you build something like this, and then the next time you make it a little bit more complex, then the next time you make it just a tiny bit more complex, and every time you're learning along the way and learning all the concepts of engineering that will take you from a simple 2-wheel car to a thrill ride. So thank you very much for joining me with the video today, and have fun learning how to create in LittleBigPlanet.